It's KJ Carson on WEEI. WEEI.
Drew was cleared medically, and Bill didn't put him back. I didn't feel good about it, and I felt that Drew was treated unfairly.
People who have been loyal to us are like family. And Drew really was like a fifth son to my dad. And I watched him agonize over this whole thing with Drew. My dad could only imagine how that was eating Drew up inside, and he had so much personal affection for him, it made it doubly difficult.
Drew came to see me, and we had a long chat, and I said, I'm going to talk with Bill.
WEEI, it's KJ Carson, and that is a piece of what all of New England is talking about, the Dynasty on Apple TV. The funny thing is I have an Apple phone, so I have the Apple subscription. I almost never watch Apple TV. This might be the most I've watched it since I started watching that show called The Morning Show. And that is the description of Robert Kraft and his son Jonathan discussing how the Patriots struggled to move from Drew Bledsoe to Tom Brady. And for the 8 minutes that I'm here, I have to explain something very important that I would say 60% of the fan base totally does not remember. That was the 5-11 season. See, as we're watching this thing called the Dynasty, it kind of starts with Tom being taken in the 6th round. But if you go back to what was going on the season before, this is why I find those comments pretty amazing from the Crafts. Like, I understand they liked him and everything, but Drew had checked out. So it's now when I look back, year 2000, I'm living in Hyde Park. I'm not going to give you the street address, but around the corner from my house is a D'Angelo sub shop. And then on that particular Sunday, I remember sitting at home, one of the few probably, watching the Patriots play the Minnesota Vikings. This is the year 2000, early fall, if I recall. When I get down to the D'Angelo sandwich shop right there on Hyde Park Ave, it's packed. It's like 2 in the afternoon, packed. I got to wait. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, I'm going to miss the kickoff for the second half. But you know what else was going on? There were a bunch of people in that store telling you they could care less about that football game and how things would change in only 2 years. Now, I'd end up moving to Kansas City. But on that day, I never will forget how football was not even in the lexicon or even on the forefront of anybody's head. In fact, I would remember some people say, yeah, this might be my chance to get down to the shore or to the Cape if traffic is, because nobody's going to be down towards the game. Like I can roll, like nobody's going to be there. The game didn't have people vested. No one said, if anything, the excitement at the time was Rick Pitino going to be sabotaged by his own very Boston Celtics team? That's what the story was at the time. This is how bad it was. At that same time, my girlfriend who was living with me, I since got my life together and married a woman and then had her live with me. It's much financially easier. She was working at the Braintree Mall. And I don't know if it was Sears or JCPenney. I don't know which store was in there or both were in there. I can't remember. I just know that she worked in like intimate apparel and did well. Nico, how you doing, my producer? You won't believe this.
Tell me about it.
She comes home with just this plethora of Patriots gear that nobody's buying off the clearance rack. One of them I remember, and I'm not going to tell you what like a lot of the shirts we used to, but one of the shirts had the schedule of the Patriots that year going 5-11. I think that shirt finally made it out of commission. If you're like me, you're one of those guys that keep T-shirts forever. That shirt lasted up to 5 years ago. These things were $3 and $4. I want some of the fan base to put into their head, especially those who are under 30, what piece of Patriots gear has ever cost $5 that wasn't legit? This is the 5-11 season. And when Ernie Adams mentioned that, hey, Drew Bledsoe is pretty much like a wildebeest out there, he was dead on. 6 sacks in that first game against Tampa. I think another 6 sacks the following week. In that that Vikings game, it was like a few more. It was like almost like 15 sacks he had taken in the first 3 weeks. And it wasn't like, hey, the offensive line is just so bad. Is that the quarterback was just so shook. Now, it was kind of cool if you had, like, someone had tickets to the Patriots game. You're like, yeah, if I could make it down there. And what I would explain to people later, before I go to break here and then come back for a couple more minutes, is the year before this show, the Dynasty you're watching, you know what people did on Sundays? They went to church. You know what they were doing 2 years later? You got a 6 a.m. mass I could get to because I got to get down to Foxborough. Got this kid Brady down there is doing some things. So I don't want to be that person that spoils that, but I feel it's very important in this short little EP show that I have here today to let you know that it's important to know or to look back. And this is what I like about this program, because I'll be back here Monday with John. We'll talk to the producer, Matthew Hamachek, as well, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll talk to him around noon on Monday on President's Day. But it's very important, and I'm sure there's a slice of people who remember. This team was bad. It was non-interesting. It didn't move the needle. You know, if anything, like Drew Bledsoe would gladly drop back 45 times in a game. Gladly. And you don't have time to get into it, but this re-solidifies that this started as a defensive thing. A lot of people think, if it wasn't for Brady, but that defense that Belichick put together, the only difference between the defense that he had here in the early 2000s and the ones that he coached at the Giants like 86 and 90 is Lawrence Taylor. Like if Andre Tippett was like 5 years younger, then you may be looking at a Patriots team that might have 8 championships, right? That's the only thing he didn't have. The secondary that he had for the Patriots was better than the one that he had for the Giants. The linebacking core was a bit better with the Giants than what he had here. The front four, almost kind of an even push. That's all the Patriots had going on at the time. So I give Ty Law and those guys a lot of credit saying, hey, you know, this was Drew's team. But the truth of the matter is, if there wasn't a defensive effort, it was going to be an ugly mess. And that's what was going on. 617-779-7937, text line 37937, KJ WEEI. I wrap up the EP show next here on WEEI.
We're right back to it. It's KJ Carson on WEEI.
Yeah, Nico, turn that up. Woo-hoo! WDEI, they got brothers, country, Beyonce, and sports. You know, if that was a Massachusetts song, it'd be like Taxes Hold'em, because that's what Massachusetts does. Taxes Hold'em. Yeah, that song's causing just a bunch of riffs in the world. You like that right there? WDEI, brothers, country, Beyonce, and sports. Text line 37937. It's KJ. What you got, Nico?
All right, we got a texter here who says that the mosh pit game was when I had enough of Bledsoe. No first downs in that first half.
It was horrible. And I think it's so important because I understand the love affair that you have for Brady, but you need to have an appreciation for people who actually gave up 3 hours of their damn Sundays to watch these games. Now, I'm not with that girl anymore that worked at the Braintree Mall, but I was really appreciative that's like my early Patriots gear, and it was like dirt cheap. Like there were red stickers on it. I remember because there used to be a Bringham's inside the mall, right? And so sometimes I'd be a good boyfriend and would have lunch with her during her break at the mall there at Bringham's or what have you, and would go into the store and peruse, and I'm like, good. I can still see in my head, I'd never seen so much Patriots gear on a clearance rack in my life than in that 5 and 11 year. And that's why I try and tell people over and over again, you won't shout me down and say, oh, it's all because of Brady. Oh, no. There was a defense over there that had something going, and that team very well, those teams could have been as bad as the teams when I was a kid, like with Mark Wilson and when Doug Flutie had come back over from Chicago, and I forgot, I think Zolak was on that team as well. Those, now you want to talk about El Stinkos. Yeah, Belichick prevented that from happening. So I'm glad that I did not sit up here and do spoiler like some like coworkers would do. They're like, and did you see the part when they said this? And you see that? And this is when they said this. Like, no, I want you to see it, right? So, but I have to tell you that, like, it's like The Godfather 2. Sometimes you got to take it back to Sicily, if you will, and describe how Don Corleone got here. The team stunk, and like that texter said, Ernie Adams is the one who said everything you needed to know about how there was a window for Brady to even get in there. Remember, he's the fourth string. That means they're considering two other guys in case of break glass, in case of emergency. I'll be back Monday with John Lyons here on WEEI, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll talk to the director of the Dynasty on Apple TV, Matthew Hamachek. So hang out. We also play Draft Class to honor the 10-year anniversary of one of the greatest movies ever made, Whiplash. Thank you, my producer, Nico. Have a great Saturday. Buy the EP. It was 8 minutes of brilliance. This was 8 minutes of brilliance here on WEEI. See ya.